In today's video, I'm going to show you 3 pretty cool tricks to enhance your application using ngrok. We'll be using ngrok to protect an endpoint, to restrict an endpoint using geolocation facilities, and to improve the security posture of our application. Let's have some fun. Okay, so let's start with the application first. Now, I've kept the application super simple. It's just here to enable us to dive in to ngrok features. Now, that's maybe just my excuse for giving you an API with black text on a white background. But what we have here is a Deno application configured with a router and some Prometheus metrics. We create a path counter so that in each route within our application or API, whatever you want to call it, we increment this based on the path that we hit. As we hit the home page and hello world, we increment. As we hit /howdy and howdy world, we increment. These metrics will also be exposed on /metrics. And one of the first things that we want to do with ngrok is just protect the metrics endpoint from unsuspecting traffic. We then listen or bind our application on localhost 127.0.0.1. So this is a private by default application on port 8000. Now it's private as I run it on localhost, and as we push it to production into maybe a container or Kubernetes, it would be private to the pod unless we hook in extra infrastructure concerns to expose that to the world. Now, because we're going to be showing off ngrok, what we need to do first is run this application and expose it with ngrok. So here I have a README file with a Deno run command that allows me to run my API, like so. I'm then using ngrok locally to say, let's expose port 8000 over HTTP on my domain, rawcode.ngrok.dev. Now, I'm not going to guide you through the installation of ngrok locally. You can use Nix shell, your system package manager, a container, or whatever you like. For me, I'll do run block. So now let's head over to our web browser and see what our wonderful application looks like. So let's go to localhost port 8000. And here we have hello world. We can now change that to howdy, and we get howdy world. One more time, we go to metrics and we see that we've hit both of these paths one time. We can also go to ngrok.dev, like so. And I accidentally went to metrics. So let's go to root, go to howdy, and then pop back to metrics, where now we've hit both pages of the application twice. And if we refresh the local one, you'll see that these are the exact same application. All we've done is use ngrok to make this available on the public internet. Now, as cool as that is, ngrok has been around for over a decade, and we're all fully aware that ngrok makes this workflow trivial. So, let's take a look at a recent feature added to ngrok Cloud, traffic policies. Okay, so again, just like a moment ago, ngrok is running. I can browse around via rawcode.ngrok.dev between the homepage and howdy. Here I have a GCP Cloud Shell where I can also curl ngrok, rawcode.ngrok.dev, and I see hello world, howdy, and of course, metrics. What I want to do now is stop ngrok and show you the second version of this command. Here, we're going to run it just as we did before, the exact same command. However, we're going to add our traffic policy file. And now if we hit run, we can still browse locally. However, from GCP, the connection is immediately rejected. Why? Well, let's take a look at our traffic policy file. Here, as said, on a TCP connection, we wish to restrict the IPs with enforce. We could set this to false to test out new policies. However, for this simple example, we're going to enforce it by default. And these are the two IP addresses, IPv4 and the infamous IPv6, for my machine on this network. Meaning, if anyone else tries to access our application, it's going to fail. But of course, what's the point now, right? It's the exact same as if I just ran it locally bound to 127.0.0.1. Now, the secret sauce of traffic policies is the common expression language. We can actually modify this to only restrict a certain endpoint. So let's go take a look at the ngrok documentation. This is the traffic policy page, which is currently in preview, but we like to fly things on the edge and unstable as often as we can. It makes things more fun. We can pop down to restrict IPs, where we'll see a nice example of how to do this, very similar to what I have done in my application. But we want to tailor this using expressions. We have access to a whole bunch of variables within the Common Expression Framework, which has been enriched or augmented by ngrok to provide even more context. If we click on connection variables here, you'll see that we only have access to a small number. Now, that's just because we were using a TCP connection and not HTTP. So if we come to HTTP, an overview, we can click on expressions, we can click on request variables. And now we have the understanding of an HTTP request. Okay, so let's scroll down and then we see request URL and request URL path. Oh, that's port. Path. So we copy this. And what we want to do is push actions down, but correctly formatted, and drop in our expression. We can update this to be /metrics. So now what we're saying is if the request path starts with metrics, restrict it to these IP addresses. So we can kill our ngrok process, head back to the README and say run, like so. Now if we head back to the service, we can still get to howdy, we can still get to hello, and we can still see metrics. If we pop over to a GCP Cloud Shell, we can run https raw code ngrok.dev, we get hello, we get howdy, but we don't get metrics. And we can actually see the request was blocked by the endpoints IP restriction. Sweet. Okay. Now we're going to try something a little bit different. I've added a new endpoint to our application /UK that says hello UK. We're going to add a geo restriction to this endpoint so that only the people in the UK can see the UK page. Heading back over to the traffic policy documentation, we can click on expressions overview and we'll see that we have access to connection geo variables. Now these actually are available on TCP and on HTTP. However, we want to send a response over HTTP, so we're going to continue using on HTTP request. If we click on this, we can see that we have access to city, country, country code, latitude, radius, etc., etc. What we want to do is filter by country. So we'll copy this expression and head back to our traffic policy doc. Here we can add a new expression like so, making sure we've got the right formatting. And I'll set this to United Kingdom. Next, we want to add our actions. And we can add a type deny with a config of status code 404. We can just make it look like this page does not exist to anyone outside of the UK. Now, to find the deny and its configuration, you can just click on Actions, Deny, and you'll see that status code is the only accepted property, and there are plenty of examples throughout ngrok's documentation. Great work, ngrok. Heading back over here, we can go to our README, make sure our application is running, and run ngrok again. If we head over to our browser, it looks like it's already tried to refresh, and we're getting a 404. Now, that's because we didn't restrict the path in which we want to block the country. And I'm kind of glad that it has blocked the country, even though I am in the UK, because it means that we have to debug this and work out how it represents the UK as a country name. What we'll do is say that we only want this to apply to /UK, and we will stop ngrok. We'll hit run, we'll go to the browser, and our howdy works, but our UK does not. So let's modify this. And instead of doing a deny, we're going to do something else. We're actually going to send a custom response. We can configure this much like we did with the deny. And to get the properties that we need, we'll head back to the documentation and click on custom response. We can continue to set a status code, only this time we can set content and headers. So, status code is going to continue to be 404. The content will be some HTML string. And the headers, we probably want to set content type. And we'll leave that as text plain. And we'll just say, sorry, this page is only available in the UK. You are from geo country. Now we know that this should work because it tells us here in the documentation that the cell interpolation is enabled on this field. So let's go back and run ngrok again. We can head back to this page and refresh. And it tells me that I am in the United Kingdom, which just makes this all a little bit more amusing for you. Okay. So let's head back over here. And of course, it's always something silly. We want to block when the country is not the United Kingdom. So let's kill that first process, rerun ngrok, head back to the browser, and refresh. And of course, we get hello UK. So let's run curl https raw code ngrok.dev/UK. And now our Cloud Shell tells us that it cannot access this website because we are in Belgium, but we haven't affected any other page. Perfect. So I hope you see just how powerful traffic policies with ngrok can be, and we've barely scratched the surface. Go explore the documentation where you'll find examples of doing JWT validation for your endpoints. You can disable insecure TLS ciphers, enable compression, and add and remove HTTP headers to requests, all through a simple YAML interface. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to thumbs up and share the video with your colleagues. Until next time, have a great day.